Education 1030 students. I hope everyone had a great week. So I cannot believe it, but it is spring break already. So you do have homework over spring break. I think I mentioned this in an earlier video, but I thought I'd go ahead and jump into it. You are going to be responsible to complete what we call a midterm check-in. So what I did here is opened up with the syllabus because I wanted you to see kind of where we are and maybe what it looks like for the next little bit. So as you can see, we are starting the midterm check-in. So we are about the midterm point right now in this semester, so about halfway. So you'll see one thing I do want to note to you is that the midterm check-in is due March the 16th, and that normally means that you would turn something in on a Thursday, but you have a few extra days, so this would actually be due on Sunday, March 16th. So that gives us a few days. Also, I'm going to put this video up earlier than I normally do. I normally try to get them up on Fridays, but I want you to have time to be able to work on that because maybe you're going on a vacation for spring break with your family, and I wanted you to have time to be able to go ahead and knock that out. That way you can kind of maybe relax over spring break. So as you can see, the spring break, it would be including your midterm check-in assignment. And remember, we are still working in Unit 2 because last week we did Chapter 5. And then after we get back from spring break, we are going to start with Chapter 6 and then move into Chapter 7 and 8. One thing to note here, in that week where we're working in Chapter 7 and 8, we're going to do both chapters together in 1 week, so it's going to be a little bit of a heavier week for you. We had it laid out that way we can make sure to get everything done in time on the course schedule. And then that will move us into our Unit 2 exam at that point. So that's going to give you a little look ahead. So let's go ahead and jump into the midterm check-in and go over that. So if you go to Unit 2, underneath Chapter 5, under the table of contents, you're going to see a section that says midterm check-in. What you're going to do is click on that form and download it, and when you do, it'll look like this. Okay, so remember, a midterm check-in is a really good way for you to reflect. So in each of your courses at the midway point, you can kind of have an idea of where you are, right? Maybe there's courses you're struggling in, maybe you're doing good in all of them but one. So what I want you to do is really take time to reflect on how you're doing in all your courses. As you can see here in the first section under my course standings, you're going to be putting your grades. You're going to calculate your grade average. Well, how do you do this? Well, the first thing is you're going to have to go to each course syllabus and review how your instructor determines your final grade. And then you will calculate, right? So you're going to see how many points you have so far and how many points you could get. That's going to allow you to see kind of where you are. So you could put points, maybe your instructor uses a weighted grade percentage-wise. However they decide to calculate your grade, you could even put a letter grade in there. I do want at least either points, and if you put points, say the whole course is worth 600 points, and right now you have 275, so you would put 275 out of 600. Okay, so I would want to know how many points, because if you were just to put 275, the course could be worth 1,000 points, right? And at that point you're failing. That doesn't tell me anything. So you got to be a little bit more specific when you're putting points. You can put a letter grade. One thing I don't want you to put, don't just put pass or fail. I do want you to put either a letter grade or a points, like how many points you have out of how many points you can earn. The second section is really talking more about how you're doing, right? So this is where we look back in our textbook when we talk about strategies. So far, the strategies we've learned. If you're doing really well, think about what are the strategies you're implementing. Are you using what type of learner you are? Are you able to use your planner? Are you managing your time better? Are you prioritizing? So what strategies are you using? So you would list those. Now think about if there's courses that maybe you're not doing too well in, right? You have maybe a C or lower, and you want to improve your grade or bring it up so you can pass. What are 3 steps you would list to improve or maintain that grade, right? So basically, if you're not passing, you obviously would want to improve it. So I would want you to write those 3 steps. If you're doing good in all your courses, then I want you to list the 3 things that you are doing that seems to be working. Now, academic advisor counselor, this is something I want you to think back on when you completed your Water State Resources worksheet. In that worksheet, I asked you to list all the resources available. How did they help you? And one of those resources was where you had to list who your academic advisor for your major was. So if you're not sure or if you don't remember, go ahead and pull that worksheet back up and look and see who your academic advisor for your major is. You're going to put their name, phone number, email, or office number there where you can get a hold of them. And the next question it asks you is if you have met with this person yet. Okay, because remember, in order to be cleared to register for spring classes, for summer and fall classes, you have to meet with your instructor. So you'd put yes or no, and if you've not reached out to them, are you going to? And then are you going to keep them? And the only reason that you would change advisors is if you were going to change your major. Or if you're Gen Ed and you actually decided on a career or a major's program of study, then at that point you would change. So I need you to put when the registration for summer and fall term, I want you to know when that is, and you're going to put it in that box there. The next section, moving on here, is going to talk about your personal time management. So I want you to go back and think about chapter 3. We were talking about managing your time and your energy. So thinking about that chapter specifically and the strategies it gave you, like using a planner and how you prioritize your time, how are you spending your time? Are you tracking it? Do you have anything you need to change your behaviors? Are you using the planner or calendar that we talked about? And answer these questions related to time management. The next section goes into motivation. Motivation is really important when we're talking about college because that's going to help us be successful. Sometimes maybe we're struggling in the class and that could bring our motivation down. So it's important for you to reflect on your motivation as well. So you're going to tell me what your current level is and what it is now compared to at the beginning of the term. And then think about who you spend your time with. Are you spending time with motivated students or ones that maybe don't have a positive attitude? And if you are struggling to set goals and you're having difficulty with motivation, what are some things that you could do? Are you planning on changing your behavior? What are some things that might help? Then we move into thinking about priorities. We talked about this in chapter 3. Priorities are important because you have a lot of classes and a lot of things that you juggle. And there are requirements that are what we call major requirements in each of your courses. When we talk about major requirements, these are things like exams, maybe a midterm exam, maybe a research paper, maybe a presentation, maybe you have a project due for history. Exploring the field presentation is an example of a project or a major requirement in our course. So as those examples I have given you, that allows you to think about all your courses. And I want you to list at least 4 major requirements. And it doesn't necessarily matter which course they're in. I just want you to list them and what the due dates are. And if you're not sure, go back in your course, look at your syllabus, look at your course calendar. And I want you to put that in there. Now, obviously, I don't want any past due items. Okay, this is for things from this point in the semester all the way to the end. So thinking about the rest of the semester and those major requirements. And then lastly, we finish out the midterm reflection, thinking about your anxiety or stress, right? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you struggling? Thinking about maybe what's causing that. It's always good for you to reflect on your mental well-being, right? What is your current level of stress? Is it high, medium, low? Thinking about counseling, maybe talking to your friend or a counselor. Do you think you could benefit from that? And then also thinking back in that Chapter 1 Water States Resource Worksheet, where was the counseling center located on campus? And kind of going back to that worksheet and finding that information, and you will input it here. That pretty much covers all of the midterm. Remember, this is a reflective piece, right? This is not, you're not going to get it wrong. The only reason that you would get points knocked off is if you didn't do a section and complete all the components for each section. Now, obviously, if you're just taking 2 classes, you would just fill in 2 courses. If you're taking 3 courses, you would fill in a grade average for those 3. If you're taking 5, you would fill in 5. I've had people take 6 before, which I don't advise. But if you are taking 6 courses, you would just come down here and type it underneath course 5. All right, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I really hope everyone has a wonderful spring break, and hopefully you get started on this early and putting it out early so you don't have to work on it over spring break. But I hope to hear about everyone's great adventure on spring break. If you went somewhere really neat or went on vacation with your family, I'd love to hear about it, and maybe you can share that with us in the class. All right, guys, until next time, take care.